Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Robert is being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a great...
My goal is not to break you. My goal is to make you harder to break.
Comes back, number 6.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
Touchdown! 90-yard touchdown!
Off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Session speed, takes a shot downfield, has Knighton. Caught! Touchdown! Chargers!
Grab your lunch boxes and go attack this day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Nobody gets me going every time. Boys, first padded practice in the books. Hall of Fame game's about 36 hours away. Football is almost legitimately back. Welcome to the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. Andy here with Al and the Teach, Big Jack. Welcome back to the studio for the first time this week. We're back on the opponent series today, covering the ever-dangerous AFC North. A blend of deadly defenses, brutal home ground advantages, good QBs, and arguably even better coaches. But before we do, like I said, the pads are on. Training camp is in full swing. And let's kick it off with just a little couple of wide receiver headlines for you, Al. Throw them back at me. What's the trouble with QJ? And is Lad the lad?
Ooh, Lad is the lad. I don't know if you all saw that little snip shot of him in the slot. One-on-one, Derwin James breaks open, catches the ball. That's what we like to see. QJ, we're seeing the same stuff as we saw, unfortunately, at training camp last year. There are a few more positives, like he's making some plays, but the one that we've all seen recently, and we'll post it in the comments for the YouTube watchers, he stacks Christian Fulton, Herbert goes deep, perfect ball into the basket, out of his hands, pop goes the weasel, cracked onto the floor, swearing at himself. Is that something to be concerned about, Andy?
Well, the tropes in the offseason were QJ's going to be wide receiver 4, and it was, I couldn't even tell you. I think it was The Athletic and some other publication or Instagram account. All these rumors. It was going to be Chark, McConkey, and no QJ. And we kind of let that go, but man, these drops it's endemic. It's endemic for Quentin Johnson, and it is problematic because... You look at it, it is the old regime, the first pick of the draft last year, but it don't look good. And you actually kind of now feel sad for him, you know?
Is there a vaccine for this particular virus? I don't know if it's been manufactured yet. I think it's still like in the research and development phase.
Well, I think you can stay off the medical stuff because this guy couldn't catch a cold, so...
I think he is one good game away from silencing all critics. That's the vaccine, that's the cure, is to go out first or second game, have 80 yards, 4 catches or whatever it is, all of a sudden gets the monkey off his back. Sounds easy to say, to do, that's another matter. But every single pair of eyes is going to be on him for the remainder of training camp. Poor fella.
For sure. And for the majority of the season, wherever he takes the field. It's just how it's going to be, unfortunately. Keeping on the offensive side of the ball, big pick number 5 rather, Joe Alt. There's a lot of chat about Bosa. Haven't spoken to him too much, but you know, when I lay my helmet on his chin first up, how are we seeing the influence of Bosa and Mack challenging Joe Alt as he, you know, faces up for his first training camp? Jack, how about that?
Okay, sorry. I thought this was a little diatribe between you and Andy there. I was feeling a little bit left out. The three-headed monster. I think it's wonderful. There's no better way for a rookie to cut their teeth than going against arguably the best pass rushing duo in the league. The one critique that perhaps we had of Alt coming out is that whilst he was very technically sound with his footwork, when he did cop a bull rush, that was when he did panic a little bit, and whether he has that NFL strength. So the quicker that he can feel that, not only from Bosa, but also from Mack and from Tooley. He also handled Bud Dupree pretty well from all reports as well. The more physicality he can get in training camp, the better. And as long as he stays healthy and as long as he doesn't injure himself, I'm all for smashing him in the mouth as much as possible. Go Joe Alt.
This is very reminiscent of Rashawn Slater's baptism of fire when he came into the league. It's one of the benefits of having such a deep edge group like we have. Use this training camp to acclimate your rookie, because in week 1, it's going to be Max Crosby lined up opposite, and he'll be one-on-one old first Crosby all day. So no better way to kind of practice himself for that than facing Boza, Mac, Dupree, Tooley, and as you said, Jack, by all accounts, he's acquitted himself pretty well on the left and on the right side of the line. So pretty positive stuff. You usually hear when the tackle is struggling, they'll call it out, and sometimes no news is good news on that front.
True that. Now, Al, I believe a twitchy little running back's caught your eye by the name of Jared Patterson.
I wasn't planning on watching Jared Patterson highlights, but I'm afraid I've had to, because he got mentioned during OTAs. He got mentioned again the first day of padded practice. And today, Greg Roman, during his press conference, basically said, oh, when I first saw him, I went, And now I've continued to watch him, and he hasn't put a foot wrong. I'm looking for a weakness. I haven't found one. He's a really good player. So who is he, Andy? He's a bloke who's had 68 NFL carries. He was with the Washington Commanders for 2021 and 2022. In that first year, he had 266 yards, 2 touchdowns, forced 11 missed tackles. He's kind of a slimmer back at 5'9", 195 pounds. And I wasn't planning about thinking much about Jared Patterson. Last year, he was on the Chargers practice squad for a short period of time and then ended up being released, and we signed him to a reserve futures contract. So all of a sudden, we'd been talking about J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Kamani Vidal, and Isaiah Spiller. I think we need to start taking Jared Patterson seriously, because he's getting reps with the ones at the moment, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, is it just another Dotson though? That's all I think, at this point in training camp, there's all the furor and happy clapping about every single performance. But as you mentioned, getting reps with the first team this early in training camp, that's probably more than just, trialing it a little bit, I think. So 5 deep, who knows the future of Isaiah Spiller? I might be finally saying goodbye to my future hope at running back.
But then we'll be hearing about the next team that picks him up, and finally he's going to come into his own. We've got a while yet, Andy, I think, tracking Isaiah Spiller's journey through the NFL, but not looking good so far for his stint with the Los Angeles.
Sometimes you say no news. Well, you did say that no news is good news, but there's sometimes you'd like to hear a bit of news, just a little bit to, just get
the thing. Nothing.
There's been nothing, and there's a bit more chat about.
Check there's still a pulse there,
Yeah, that's right. Well, I guess running back is kind of the interesting room. Like if Greg Roman's going, hey, this running back's catch my eye, guy loves him, right? Jack, you've been listening to a bit of Greg Roman. What are your thoughts on his recent interview?
Yeah, so I watched and listened to his interview today. He doesn't cut a large figure behind the podium, old Greg Roman. He's quite sort of short and stout. He doesn't, no. He's quite sort of, I find him quite endearing, actually. The way that he talks is very slow and very calm. Exactly the kind of voice you want in your ear, I think, as a quarterback. So he has mentioned how Herbert and DJ Chark have started building a relationship, which I think is wonderful. DJ Chark comes in. He's not getting paid that much money, but I think he brings something to the wide receiver room that we need. Joshua Palmer seems to be making good progress as well. And also, just back to the offensive line a little bit, whilst he didn't necessarily mention any one player in particular, he did focus on Joe Alt moving to right tackle. And it was kind of funny reading in between the lines. He said, sometimes, players make a big deal out of moving from left tackle to right tackle, and it's a big deal for them and it's really challenging. But that's not what we're looking for here. We're looking for players who are versatile and who are very happy to play at different positions in the line. And we support them and try to help them do that. You need to build your muscle memory, understanding it's, different hand position and different foot position from left to right tackle. I think what we could be seeing in this run game is going to be different sets of offensive linemen from sort of series to series, depending on how much running Roman wants to do, which I think is super exciting, because not only, for the first time, maybe I'm kind of comfortable with the depth of the offensive line group. Normally it's kind of your 5 and you go, gee, if one of them goes down, we're cooked. But I thought that was something to mention. And also he did mention the tight end group and how Disley has been revitalised, and Hayden Hurst's versatility, and also Donald Parham's unique attributes. So that could be an unlikely trio of kind of mercenary men, I think, almost like Robin Hood and his band of merry men. They're all a bit weird in their own way, but still very effective when asked to do unique things. So I thought that was some interesting insights from what he said today.
Yeah, nice.
That would make a Greg Roman Friar Tuck, I think, probably.
Well, if you're drawing likeness to Greg Roman, every time I've watched him, I just, when you're like, who does he remind me of? And I'm really hoping that this reference hits better than I'm guessing the Blue Oyster Cult "Don't Fear the Reaper" did last week, but because I know neither of you two know that song. But it dawned on me. He's Bill from Guess Who? The game. He's got the same bonds with the goatee. It's Bill from Guess Who.
Hey, someone in the comments actually said, "I'm here for the Tribe Called Quest references." So awesome job, whoever you are. Thank you for listening, and I'm glad you picked up on it.
Was that your reference? Because I didn't.
It was. I left my wallet in El Segundo. Yeah,
cool.
Talk about how much they spent on the facility.
Not bad. I was talking to Al off air in like this last week, and I was like, I must have just done one of my things where I've made a reference and not known where it come from, but I'm glad that we actually hit on that, so that's good. We joked last week when we were looking at the Carolina Panthers about bringing in, a trio of former Panthers. Bradley Bozeman, he's one of the features of that offensive line you mentioned, Jack. So where are you sitting on him? I think you're a big fan.
I am listening to his press conference. I listened to it twice, actually, because I was that impressed. Whilst his play is probably not going to liken to Lindsley, he has experience with Coach Devlin before, and I thought they actually crossed paths in Baltimore, but they actually didn't. They were they just missed each other. I think when Devlin went to Baltimore, that was when Bozeman went to Carolina. But yeah, apparently Devlin's making a big impact in terms of how they want to play and the cohesiveness as a unit. This is all kind of lip service a little bit, but I'm hoping that Devlin can make an impact, and we've been crying out for a really good offensive line coach for a while now. And the other thing I did want to mention is his stuff that he does with the SYNC program, which is support your neighbours and communities. Nice. And funnily enough, he's also a brand new father, or he's got a 4-month-old, I think. Whether he's got some other kids, I'm not sure, but he says he's very busy. But yet he still finds time to start building up. Well, he finds time to work with the community and working with local community heads and police departments to sort of get that supporting your neighbours and community. I think it's wonderful. So really good guy to have in the building.
Sweet. Yeah. Looking forward to a Walter Payton Man of the Year nomination for
Amen.
Big BB at the end of the year. So that's good to hear. I love these pro athletes who give back. A couple more little things before we get stuck into the AFC North. Al, tell me, what does Jim Harbaugh think about injury-related questions in press conferences?
Well, and I'm glad you asked that. Yeah.
Do you like starting fires on Twitter?
I don't mind if I do. I think what we have seen over the last few days, and for those who missed it, who are listening, Daniel Popper, who is an exacting style, has an exacting style when he asks questions. It's what makes him a great reporter. He won't just be satisfied with your initial response as a coach. If he wants to understand what you've said, he will ask you to unpack that. He may even challenge you. And we saw it earlier this week, or maybe it was late last week. He wanted to know why Rashawn Slater had seemed to go down and then leave with trainers. And Harbaugh wasn't too happy giving any detailed response to that. Popper kind of circled around, prodded, pried. Harbaugh ultimately said, well, he's working through something. Popper, being the type of guy, a bit like my brother, for people who've met him, won't be satisfied with that response. And he had other people he wanted to know about. So he said, okay, what about Donald Parham? Oh, he's working through something. And what about Junior Colson? He's working through something. I detected a little bit of irritation. I know Tau 837, our good online blogging friend, disagreed. He's very much in Harbaugh's corner, not wanting to put words in his mouth, but thinks we'll never see a Staley-esque meltdown with Jim Harbaugh. My counter to that is, well, we know Harbaugh can be a volatile personality on the sidelines. We've seen him get angry. We've seen him fight with Jim Schwartz, who we'll talk about a bit later on. And if he's already getting just slightly miffed during training camp, well, then might he get just as miffed or more when the team starts losing games? And the questions are actually, well, why didn't you go for that fourth down?
He's working through something.
He's working through something. So, I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Jack, what do you think about Harbaugh? Do you think he'll have the composure to deal with that kind of stuff? Or do you think maybe this could be something to monitor and they could clash heads a little?
Yeah. Listen, there's an element of experience to Harbaugh, and I think reporters know perhaps what they're going to get with Harbaugh a little more. If he's a little fiery, there is a soundbite to take and to think about, but he's got this charisma and he's got this way of completely just turning an icy situation quite positive as well. Even at the end of that exchange with Daniel Popper, there was a slight smile and a wry kind of like, I know what you're trying to do here. You'd like to think that someone, even if he does blow up a little bit, could almost walk up to Daniel Popper afterwards and go, hey man, don't worry about it. It's all good. Maybe Staley didn't have that capacity. He almost took things too personally. To be honest, I don't mind seeing a bit of fire. I know we did criticize for Staley. We praised Staley for staying calm under pressure and saying and talking things out. But you know what? A little bit of a grumpy old man, that's okay because he gives fire to the players. So, yeah, maybe something to watch, but I'm not too concerned about it because he's got so much experience.
We praised Staley for that until he did not keep cool at all.
Oh,
and you could see his grasp over that, like, Dan Campbell-sized coffee, just white-knuckled, like, losing the plot. Hey, Brandon, your defense sucks. Huh? I don't mind it. I think there's, like, a genuity in the senility of Harbaugh, if you will.
Yeah.
And he's a man of his word. He has an enthusiasm unknown to mankind, and that is exuded in everything that he says. I don't mind him staying in his lane and not talking about injuries, of which I'm sure he has far better an idea of bantam hens and RVs than he does on player injuries and things like that. Look, I'm all for it. He seems like he sticks to his guns. I think he's experienced enough to keep it cool in front of the camera and the microphone, and then on the sideline, bit similar to me, white line fever, just emotions out the door, completely different human being. So I don't mind it. I think it's kind of fun.
I think the take home is it is almost impossible to maintain the levity and lightness in the midst of losing consistently. It doesn't matter what your sport is. We've seen it in the AFL. As soon as that pressure is on, your team has lost 1, 2, 3, 4 games in a row. Your job's in question. All that matters is winning and losing, and it's very hard to maintain that level-headed response system. What I think we've got to hope, though, is that a Coach Harbaugh-led team won't have those kind of long streaks of losses where the team is crap and the defense is horrible. So hopefully he'll never find himself in that situation ever because the team will be too good and he's too good a coach.
But and lastly on this point, and this is what happens when you have a head coach that is not calling the plays. Harbaugh knows how to insulate his players from criticism. Harbaugh will also know how to insulate his coaches and his coordinators from criticism. I think he'll be very happy to stand up there and have stoushes and be the figurehead because he can do that given his experience. The key is not letting that anxiety and stress wash over Ortiz and wash over Minter. And I think then that goes down, right? If Ortiz and Minter aren't worried because Harbaugh's doing all the copping the heat, that's fine because then the players don't cop it and you're insulated. Whereas I think Staley, because he was calling the plays, he had the headset on, that's one step closer. That anxiety, that stress does permeate a little more throughout the organization into your players. That's the other thing that I think is kind of different in this situation.
Spot on.
I think the experience speaks volume for all facets of the situation and the role. So It's going to be really fun either way to watch it all unfold. And like you said, Al, bloody fingers crossed, knock on wood, and do all that jazz. That we don't go on a run of losing games. 'Cause I don't want to know about that anymore. I'm done. Anything further, gents? Any positional usurpers on the horizon? Al.
Al?
I'll jump in. I think I'll mention that we've seen what some of these different offensive line groupings may look like, because when Slater went out, you had Joe Alt move to left tackle, Pipkins went from right guard to right tackle, and Saulier came in to right guard. So that tells you something. Then today, at a certain point, Saulier came out injured. And interestingly, what they actually did at that point was move Bozeman from center to right guard and bring Hymas in as the center. So all of a sudden, that line was Alt, Zion, Hymas, Bozeman, Pipkins. So I think we're getting, who knows, we'll see when the games start, but we're starting to learn a bit about who their preferred 6th and 7th offensive lineman is. And a lot of chatter out there about Jordan McFadden. We saw him lined up as a fullback a couple of times in Kellen Moore's scheme. Apparently, they've been getting him doing a bit of everything, like leaking him out on routes, running him around as a lead fullback. And the Ravens did this with a tackle called Patrick McCarry, who is a kind of a similar build. So I don't like whether it's a jumbo set at the goal line with 6 offensive linemen, you've got McFadden there, or him as the fullback in the eye. Something to monitor. I think those 8 offensive linemen are all making the team, and the question is, will there be a 9th, and who will it be?
Yeah,
Bozeman was very complimentary of James as well, and from all reports, Zion Johnson is having a very good start to camp as well, which is
what we like to see.
Yeah, because he needed to. Just last one from me, Andy. I recently, just a couple of hours ago, actually watched Ortiz on the Rich Eisen show. And now, me being a bit of an organization head, I look for differences in how Ortiz speaks versus what Harbaugh says. And I'm trying to make sure that they're marrying up, because I always thought when I listened to Staley or when I listened to Lynn, I thought Telesco was sometimes never really backed up what they were trying to do. Telesco would always kind of circle around and not give you a right answer. So the main things that I took away, it was a really good interview. I hadn't known that Ortiz and Harbaugh had known each other for like 26 years, which is pretty incredible.
Racquetball or something.
Yeah, something bizarre like that.
Yeah.
But the main things, and there are 5 things, I won't go into them in any depth, but balanced offensive approach, we know that's going to happen. Harbaugh has been speaking about that. What's his name? Roman has been speaking about that. So that is very clear. All on the offensive side. It's about balance, physicality and versatility. We can see that with the players that we've drafted. We can see that in the way that they're running the offensive line, for example. It's all about versatility. Smart and driven players, that's kind of a buzzword. What are smart and driven players? We'll see the motivation of these players. So far, it looks all right. But the one thing that was wonderful to hear is that Ortiz talked about a collective team identity. And he talked about the tough roster decisions to get rid of Keenan and Mike and a number of others. But he was talking about that's fine. That they would have been welcome if they wanted to, but money and things. But we are looking to build an identity together. And then obviously the last point, which Alistair, you always love, is that emphasis on developing players. And whether they stay or whether they go, Ortiz is very much in the business of making sure that everyone has a chance to succeed. There's not really a hierarchy as such. Everyone's got the potential. If you prove you can do it, you can go out and do it. So I thought those are really, it seems everything's in sync, and that's wonderful to hear.
Nice. Well summarized, guys. On to the AFC North. I'll throw over to you for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and everyone crack a bottle, let your body waddle. Get stuck in. Let's enjoy the show.
Cheers, fellas. All right. So 4 teams in the AFC North, one of the very strong divisions of the NFL. The Steelers, I mean, if they weren't going to win less than 50% of their games last year, they never will. They still managed to surpass that somehow, despite their quarterback room being a combination of Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and Mason Rudolph.
Gosh.
I remember, Andy, we watched that week 1 game together at Warburton. The 49ers wiped the floor with them in their home opener at Pittsburgh. But by the end of the year, they kind of find a way to win their last 3 games of the season. And then ultimately the Bills slap them around in the wild card round, but they still made the playoffs. But what was the poison pill last year? What was the real issue with this team? Was it the offensive line? Was it the quarterback play? Was it the fact that they fired their offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, after week 11? The first time the Steelers have made a mid-season coaching change since 1941. Who is to blame for all of
Matt
that?
Canada.
Well, I think we might actually know who's to blame.
We must stop dirty language from getting to our children's ears. We must go fight the source of it. But what is the source? Oh, that's easy.
Oh, times have changed. The Steelers are getting worse. They cannot run the football and their quarterbacks are cursed. Should they blame Coach Tomlin or maybe their GM? Or should they blame the funnies of Big Ben? Blame Canada. Blame Canada. With his beady little eyes and his playbook full of lies. You're a liar. Canada. Blame Canada. Yes, he really is a dolt. It's Canada's fault. Don't blame me. I pray you'll understand. Pickett likes shot completions, but it just got out of hand.
Pickett is
One
crap.
fan back in college had my picture on his shelf, but now all the Steelers fans tell me to fuck myself. Blame Canada. Blame Canada. It seems that everything's gone wrong since my Canada came along. Canada. Blame Canada. He's not even a real OC anyway.
Oh, he doesn't mind a bit of his own work.
Oh, that was
Fantastic.
wonderful. That's fantastic.
Look, Curse goes out for breakfast on Sunday morning, and that's what I do with a spare 3 hours.
That's wonderful.
Some South
That
Park
was
voices.
wonderful. Great harmonisation as well. That was good.
Thank you. Took a few takes, I promise. So, Canada's out the door. Arthur Smith, recently fired from his tenure as head coach of the Falcons, goes back to his role as an offensive coordinator now with the Steelers, and that's where he did a lot of really good work with the Titans and Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. So maybe this is a very good move for the Steelers. They get Smith, who always has a good running game, and I think there's been a bit too much disrespect on his name just because it didn't work as a head coach. So he comes across. They make these major moves where they decide to go with 2 really cheap toss-of-the-coin options at quarterback. Russell Wilson, 36 years old, who's only making $1.21 million from the Steelers this year. And then on the other hand, Justin Fields, who's only 25, he's just making $3.23 million this year. So between them, 2 quarterbacks who have started in the league at a combined $4 million. And they will have the 3rd most salary cap space in the NFL next year with $77 million to play with. So I ask you, Jack, maybe you can talk a bit about the draft they've had, how they're set up. Do you think the Steelers are set up for long-term success?
Oh, 100%. I think the Steelers were probably my biggest win of the offseason from memory, I think, or they were definitely in my top couple. The way that they've drafted by going Fautanu and Frazier in the first and the second, shoring up that offensive line, you are giving Wilson and Fields a go. There's a good QB battle there. But if you completely shit the bed, which could happen, and they might be picking in the top 15 or maybe top 12, then if there's a quarterback, go up and get them. And if he's half decent, this team is ready to go. Absolutely ready to go. I think I'd be on the lookout for George Pickens having a big breakout year. I'd be looking for Calvin Austin to be an interesting kickoff returner, given his speed, if you're into fantasy. Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, Marquez Callaway, the kind of wide receiver room falls away there. But, Pat Frymouth, Darnell Washington, you've got Michael Pruitt there. That's a pretty serviceable tight end room. Offensively, they are ready to go. And they've taken the gamble. Hey, if Russell Wilson works out, awesome. If Justin Fields works out, fantastic. If they don't, get rid of him, and you're picking in the top 10 with a playoff-ready team.
Yeah, Andy, you go, mate. I was going to just say, at the moment in training camp, it looks like Russell Wilson hasn't taken the field yet. He's got a niggling calf injury, and Justin Fields has turned a few heads with a few deep completions. How do you see that kind of playing out?
I think it's really interesting. I think the heat is widely off the quarterback position. And I think Justin Fields coming off a pretty tumultuous experience in Chicago. Obviously, the way Russell Wilson's career has panned out after great success at Seattle. He's now having a horrible time in Denver. But as Jack said, they've drafted Fautanu and Zach Fraser, the state wrestling champ from West Virginia. And they've what were they last year? I think 13th or thereabouts in run blocking and 31st in pass blocking. So they can kind of go either way. You've got in Justin Fields in particular, like quite a versatile quarterback, and losing Deontay Johnson, they haven't really replaced the wide receiver role. I think, George Pickens did quite well last year, but Van Jefferson is a bit of a murky wide receiver too. I don't know what exactly happened to Roman Wilson, but it seems like he got carted off at practice today or yesterday. So look, they're really, we talk about the Chargers being going to be a lot more run heavy. I don't see any reason why this Steelers team needs to sort of change that philosophy of running the football. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren as well, who I quietly think could usurp Najee Harris as the go-to guy, and adding Cordarrelle Patterson as well. I'm not sure whether Calvin Austin or Cordarrelle will be in that order, the punt returner and the kick returner, but either way, you're looking at a vast improvement in the special teams as well on that front, coming up from 20th with a speedy punt returner and, even though a year older, like a much better kick returner. So I think either way that the quarterback position sort of unfolds, it's almost like QB by committee in a way, to use, a terminology that goes around pretty regularly. So it's really open slather, and I think Artie Smith will be a lot more in his zone of being an offensive coordinator.
Yeah. And then
I was going to say,
you go, Jack.
I was going to say, let's be honest, this defense hasn't gotten any worse either. The defense has probably gotten stronger. I love Peyton Wilson in the third round as a linebacker. Joey Porter Jr. had a wonderful year last year. Will probably take another step forward. You get Dean Lowry from the Minnesota Vikings. Patrick Queen comes over as the big signing from the Baltimore Ravens. Man, this defense is, and playing in the middle of winter in Pittsburgh outside, I don't want to play against guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick. As I said, Patrick Queen. You got Highsmith. Really liked Herbig as well as a draft prospect coming out. You've got obviously your TJ Watts. Did Cameron Hayward retire? Is that right, or is he still?
He's actually come back. He's back.
He's come back.
So he's add him to the mix, and they've got another guy, Keanu Benton, ready to assume that mantle too. I always say, when you come up against the Steelers, they're going to have a top 10 defense. Every time you play them, you're talking about these 16, 13 games in the middle of winter, as you said, very hard to score against them. And we have a little segment we always refer to as no pain, no gain on these opponent shows. When you play the Steelers, you've got TJ Watt, who exclusively rushes from that left-hand side. Bloke had 19 sacks last season, most in the NFL. Again, good luck, Joe Alt. By the end of this first year, guys, we're going to have a very good understanding of Joe Alt and whether that pick 5 was a well-spent use of such a high pick, because he's going to have to face rusher after rusher, and the Steelers probably have the best in the league.
Yeah, I think the scheduling of this matchup is the biggest concern. Away in week 3, we've got Max Crosby, Panthers. Be the Panthers. Let's not overlook it, because that'll be a real stinger. But then having this one in Pittsburgh, TJ Watt.
Week 3.
That Raiders in week 1 will be the real hype-setting match for the Harbaugh tenure, but this is the big test for the Bolts, I think, right out of the gate. So, look, credit to Mike Tomlin. What an incredible coaching career. He's currently sitting at 19 consecutive winning seasons. He's 2 off Belichick, and
I'll take 2.
I think he's 4 off Don Shula. By the time his coaching career ends, he's 11th at the moment for most career wins as a head coach, and the names above him are, Halas, Shula, Belichick. Landry, Lambo. It's a ludicrous group, and it's like you said at the start, Al. Like you can't keep this guy out of the playoffs or knocking at the door. So the Steelers are just one. I know there's been some contests between the Chargers and the Steelers in years gone by where we've lost in heartbreaking fashion, and you've really just got to bring it all. That's where I'm hoping that the Harbaugh experience that he has, not necessarily the Harbaugh experience of the team, just gives you a little bit of a leg up in that. But it's like this, it's a heck of a way to start looking at the division, because last year you looked at Kenny Pickett and that quarterback room and you thought, finally we can waste one of the AFC North, but that didn't turn out to be the case at all. So all kinds of surprises. They won 2 games against the Bengals last year. They can just make it happen. They just make it work.
Yeah,
very
they know
impressive.
what they're doing. So, Chargers face the Steelers in week 3, early in the season at Pittsburgh. I'll start us off. I've penciled in a loss for this game. Surprised me, Jim Harbaugh. Maybe you find a way to just stop the run, because they'll run the ball and keep it close. But I think after a nice win against the Panthers, it makes sense that traveling to Pittsburgh, this ends up being a loss. Jack, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, Raiders win, Carolina win, Pittsburgh buzzsaw. That's a loss for me. And just to touch on what you're saying, Andy, you're saying all those names of those vaunted coaches. Obviously, Mike Tomlin's black coach, an incredible role model, an incredible person for the black community, and also in the NFL. So yeah, it's a loss, and we're gonna run into a very, very strong defense, and Justin Herbert's gonna get hit. He's gonna get lit up.
I was a bit flat last week when we all had the same picks. I thought, geez, we could have a bit of variation, but unfortunately, I'm penciling in a loss for this one as well. I think it's just gonna be. I know. But it's just at Pittsburgh. I feel like things are just going to gel a little bit easier for them. They could gel very, very quickly for the Chargers, but this is formidable. You'll have TJ Watt against a rookie tackle. You've got experience and prowess across that line, depth in the linebacker position. I don't think they've really gone backwards at cornerback. And I think this Steelers offense can magic some stuff up. They're going to be better than they were last year. So I don't want to see it, but I'm going L.
It's going to be a frustrating game. I think there's going to be a lot of out of the pocket scrambles and sort of extending plays, and I think really exploiting our cornerbacks. Anyway, should I start with the Cleveland Browns? We take our steps to Cleveland. Let me start with a couple. So key acquisitions for the Browns. There's kind of only one. It's been a pretty quiet off-season from the Browns themselves, but that's obviously Jerry Jeudy. He moves out of our division and moves into the AFC North, gets a new contract, and if the Browns are anything to sort of pick up those receivers that are maybe a little bit disgruntled, a la Amari Cooper, and turn them into something half decent, a la Amari Cooper, then I think Jerry Jeudy in the slot might be quite annoying to play against. And the only other big signing, or the retention I should say, was Zadarius Smith. I thought it was weird that they kept him, given that he had a pretty modest sack count in last season. Where they're strong, offensive line, they've got Conklin there, they've got DeJuan Jones, Jermaine Ifedi, Hakeem Adeniji. They're all fighting for spots. They've got a bit of depth there. Interesting that there's a competition at linebacker as well between Jordan Hicks, Devin Bush, and Zach Cunningham. I'll speak about the linebacker group in a second. And the weird thing I've seen is they've actually probably assembled the best backup quarterback room in the NFL with DTR, Jameis Winston, and Tyler Huntley. All those three guys can play ball. So I don't know what they're trying to do there. They're just trying to find the one that Deshaun Watson clicks with the most. or are they doing a little bit of a plan if, Deshaun Watson decides to shit the bed and needs to go? Who knows? But I thought that was interesting. Anyway, the stuff I do want to focus on were the leadership and strategy shifts, because it's a whole entire new offense. Ken Dorsey comes in from Buffalo. You've got tight end coach Tommy Rees, Deuce Staley at running back, offensive line coach Andy Dickerson, and assistant OL coach Roy Istvan. We all know Dorsey's scheme from Buffalo. He's always balanced attack with a strong emphasis on passing. But Deshaun Watson is definitely not Josh Allen. His offenses are known for being pretty aggressive, which I think the Browns probably kind of feel like they need, especially downfield, and likes to stretch the field both vertically and horizontally. So I think, and you look at the offense and go, geez, there's some names there to do that. If he can do anything like he was in the 2022 Buffalo season, fourth in points, fourth in total yards, fifth in yards per play, fifth in passing yards, 10th in the league rushing yards, fifth with rushing touchdowns, and 9 with rushing yards per attempt. So if he can do anything like that, geez, the Cleveland Browns with their defense, which I'm going to talk about now, are looking a little bit scary. Schwartz moves into his second year, and I think that there hasn't been a lot of change there from their 4-3 defensive scheme, but my lord, their front four is disruptive. And I just wanted to look at, this was one of the best defenses in the league last year, but they were also one of the best at being able to convert rushes or blitzes to sacks. So their blitz attempts are only 15th in the league. So they're middle of the league, right? And their blitz percentage was only 14th at 27.4%. Their hurry percentage was 12th. Their quarterback knockdown percentage was 10th. And then their sacks was 6th in the league. That is unbelievable value for the amount of blitzing that they do not do. Incredible. Their pressure percentage was 11th. Their missed tackle percentage was 6th. Incredible rushing, pass rushing, I should say, defense. They were able to turn that strong pass rush into sacks, and they don't have to send the house as well. However, what is interesting is that their rushing defense was poor because it was 23rd in the league. Their yards per attempt was 23rd, letting 4.4 go. And this is where the biggest signing for the Browns, I think, this offseason was Mike Vrabel, coming in with his diverse experience as the leader of coaching and player personnel consultant. I believe Vrabel has come in to improve this linebacker room. In Schwartz's scheme, it's a 2 linebacker set, and they were dastardly. They were very poor last year. But if Vrabel can bring in some of that nous and how he defends the running game with Schwartz, Vrabel's 2022 Titans rushing yards allowed, first in the league with only 1,307. Rushing yards per attempt, first in the league, only allowing 3.4. Rushing touchdowns, second in the league with only 9 rushing touchdowns allowed across the whole season, and rushing yards per game, first, only allowing 77 yards per game. So my takeaway before I throw to you, Alistair, is that Mike Vrabel is the biggest linchpin in this organization in the offseason. What he can do on the defense to improve it even better could mean that these Cleveland Browns, and with a healthy Deshaun Watson, could be a very, very, very formidable opponent.
Yeah. I mean, Schwartz wants to rush with 4. It helps when you've got Myles Garrett, who's an absolute freak. They play some of the highest amounts of man coverage in the NFL. They will have a sour taste in their mouths because despite being, as you said, Jack, if not the best, a top 3 defense during the regular season, they came out and got their pants pulled down against the Texans, losing 45-14. Bobby Slowick was amazing, and he took advantage of their aggressive coverage systems, had a number of different double moves. They used motion and formations to keep the Browns' defensive backs from pressing their receivers, and then punish their aggressiveness with double moves. And it was just bombs away down the field. Schwartz will need to adjust. And maybe, as you pointed out, it's the addition of Mike Vrabel, amongst other things. That's just another voice in the room, another sounding board to fix up some of the porous holes, particularly in the rush defense. Andy, on the offense, because this might be one of those tropes that isn't accurate. Everyone thinks great defense, not a very good offense. I want to give some credit to Stefanski. This is his 5th year as a coach. His record is 37 wins, 30 losses. How this team won 11 games last year with Flacco having 6 starts, DTR 3 starts, PJ Walker 2 starts, Jeff Driscoll had a start. 11 wins is a heck of a job. They're being hamstrung by, it's the elephant in the room. Deshaun Watson, at the moment, it looks like his contract is one of the worst in NFL history.
$250 million.
Outrageous. So as a result of that, it really constrains what Andrew Berry, the GM, can do in the offseason. They're going to have the second least cap space in the league next year. I had a look. Watson's going to cost $64 million fully guaranteed each of the next 3 seasons. So you can't really get rid of him. The moment you get rid of him, you incur a $64 million dead cap each of those years. I mean, if he's that bad, maybe they'll cop it. But it seems like he's going to be in the driver's seat for the next 3 years as their starter. But the pressure falls onto Stefanski. Rightly or wrongly, could he be fired this year based on Deshaun's play? Because Deshaun ain't going anywhere.
Whoa. Well, they do say that your best ability is your availability. I believe that they've built that quarterback room as an insurance policy. And I think that they've done the same thing with their running back room as well, with Jerome Ford, Nyheim Hines, and Donta Foreman behind Nick Chubb, who has an injury history as well. I don't know necessarily if, 11 wins, did they get a bit lucky with Flacco winding the clock back to, 2012 Baltimore days? Yeah, for sure. But are we saying that Deshaun Watson is done? Are we saying that he is just throwing money down the drain? I don't know. I've seen a few clips on Instagram and otherwise of Deshaun Watson so far in training camp, and he's throwing bounce passes into the catch nets. So, look, I don't know. Are we talking about Stefanski is like a couple of years removed from, if he didn't win, he was pretty close to Coach of the Year. Yeah.
Well, let me give you some numbers on Deshaun, Andy. So 3 things quickly that stood out to me. He had the highest rate of red zone incompletions due to inaccurate passes last year at 60%. The next worst was Mac Jones, 50%. Just for a comparison, Justin Herbert was 23%, one of the best in the league. So he's inaccurate in the red zone. He had the 3rd slowest time to throw of any starting quarterback in the NFL, 3.12 seconds per snap. Now, when he is at his best in Houston, he kind of does that, right? Because he's a bit like Lamar, where he buys time and he makes stuff happen with his legs. Yeah. But this year, when he was pressured, he had a PFF grade of 44.1, which is basically in the red. So that's how he's playing at the minute. We know he's had shoulder problems. He fractured his shoulder in week 10, missed the rest of the season. Is the door shut on Deshaun Watson? Is he screwed? Has it been too much, whether it's mental, on-field, off-field? Is he done, or do you think this guy can bounce back?
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, it is a combination of mental and physical, I think. I don't know if he's done. I think this is one of those, we'll let it see how it goes. If he is available for the entirety of the year, that will tell the story. The team is now built. They've got a great offensive line. They've got great depth at offensive line. Njoku, Jerry Jeudy, and Jerry Jeudy not having to be, the star more than just one of those guys, as he's talked about so much for all the criticism he copped in his time at Denver. Amari Cooper, who finished last year in an absolute heat. Maybe you're right. Maybe if things do go south, it's either Kevin or Deshaun. Would Andrew Berry cut his losses and just $64 million of dead cap? That is crazy. I think that would be a worse look
for 24, 25, and 26. That's wild, man. Jack, man. I was just thinking about this team.
Poor Kevin.
Poor Kevin, because they are really good on paper. I just want to say, and I love you, man. Isn't it good to see Nick Chubb come back into the team?
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite guys in the NFL as a running back anyway, coming back from a torn ACL. I dare say a lot of the season will rest on his shoulders. Maybe, Jack, you can give us any final thoughts before going into our game prediction.
Listen, the one thing on your question you asked, Andy, before, if we're going to give Russell Wilson and Justin Fields the rub of the green in terms of are they done or are they not, then I think you've kind of got to give Deshaun Watson a bit of a rub of the green here and trust Kevin Stefanski to be doing something. I think we'll know very quickly. Vrabel. Yeah, or Vrabel. Well, Vrabel didn't have amazing quarterbacks at Tennessee, but
Deshaun has it in him, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think we'll know very quickly, and the game is played between the ears at quarterback. We all know that. So we'll know very quickly, and we'll probably know we have them in week 9.
Not between the towel and the table.
We'll let that fly through, I think.
Oh, gosh, yeah, straight to the
Are we not doing massage jokes? Oh, guys.
I'm going to read a pre-prepared statement a la Jim Harbaugh. No comment. He's working through something.
Yeah, no comment.
Or the masseuse is working through something. Got him!
Oh, there we go. Yeah, listen. All right, I'll go with my prediction. And I've actually penciled this in for a loss in week 9. Away, Cleveland, cold. The AFC North so far have been the buzzsaw to run through Harbaugh's Chargers. That's a loss for me.
Ooh, okay.
Ali?
I like it. We're going to break this up. I'm going to call this one a win. I'm going to say Greg Roman does enough to win the battle against Jim Schwartz. And I'm going to say if Deshaun Watson has a similar season to last year, our defense can do enough to get home in what I think will be a close game. So I'm going to say we go and have a very strong win away from home in Cleveland.
Yep. I'm looking at Greg Roman's experience, having played countless years against the Browns, countless experience against Myles Garrett, etc. And I'm taking a W as well. Bald men think alike. Win away. And I'm not talking like this 47-42 stuff. I'm going like comfortable, not as high scoring, but we're getting it done. 1-1 so far in the AFC North.
Shout out to and the other I love you, man. I forgot to say it. It's in my notes here. Sorry, Andy, before you go. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah had a back end of the season that was insane. The guy is a physical freak and could be a complete and utter breakout star for that defense, which is nuts considering the names at some other positions who are incredible defensive players too. But Jock, watch out for him.
Right on. Cincinnati Bengals. We played them at SoFi in week 11. 9-8 last year and 4th in the AFC North. To say 2023 was a disappointing year for the Bengals is a gross understatement. They started the campaign 1-3. Joe Burrow labored through a calf injury. He hit it hot, won 4 in a row, including at San Francisco and against the Bills. And then it was 3 losses in a row, and that was pretty much the end of Joe Burrow's season, tearing a ligament in his wrist. Jake Browning takes over. In the offseason, they've promoted Dan Pitcher to offensive coordinator. Brian Callahan, obviously, off to Tennessee as the head coach. Pitcher's served now 8. Well, this will be his 8th year in Cincy. The last 4 he has spent as Burrow's QB coach. And to quote Joey Ice, our relationship is as good as it gets. I would not be the player I am today without Dan. Just keep the guy healthy. Just keep Joe healthy. They said goodbye to Jonah Williams and Max Sharping, brought in free agent Trent Brown from the Pats, drafted Amarius Mims from Georgia. They've taken the polarizing Crimson Tide receiver Jermaine Burton in the 3rd round, notorious for some of his on-field behaviors. Please see Alabama versus Tennessee, where Burton struck a female fan that stormed the field following the Volunteers' win. But according to T. Higgins, once Burton gets this offense under wraps, he's going to be a serious problem. He's really impressing at camp for the Bengals.
Yep.
Burrow also claiming that this is in front of him, and this is sans Tyler Boyd as well. This is the best receiving core he's had it since being drafted in 2020. So look, for their season, excluding, when we play against them, hopefully for the Bengals, the rookie can make good on his record of catching a touchdown every 5.7 receptions, as he did throughout his college career. Like, crazy. If he can keep his head in it, like, it'll be worth the gamble in the 3rd round, where a lot of other teams went, man, you smacking a chick? No, thank you. Other offensive departures, stalwart running back Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, as I said. Irv Smith Jr. at tight ends out the door. But did the team, Al, I'll ask you this, did the team do enough over the offseason to see off pass blocking and run blocking rankings of 22nd and 23rd? Because they've added a little bit, but there's some issues with that offensive line, man.
Yeah, I agree. I think short answer is not really. The interior is the same as it was with Volson, Karras, and Kappa. Orlando Brown, big issue. They let up a lot of pressures last year. Orlando Brown, we've seen him in Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken. He has struggled recently. Trent Brown is solid. We'll see how quickly Amarius Mims comes on behind him. He was good but inexperienced for Georgia. My answer to your question, like, have they done enough? I look at a team last year who, even after Burrow went down, somehow still had the third fewest rush attempts in the NFL. They couldn't run the ball. So then Mixon leaves, who was definitely serviceable, although slowing down. Now it all falls on Zach Moss, who comes in as someone who probably must hit. Otherwise, this is going to fall heavily on Burrow as per usual. And Jack, the big news at the moment, other than how much Jermaine Burton's turning heads at training camp, is we now have 2 disgruntled wide receivers. We've got T. Higgins, who's going to play on the 5th-year option for about $20 million, and then he'll hit free agency at the end of this year. But at the moment, Jamar Chase is now holding in. He wants a new contract. Otherwise, next year, he'll have to play on the 5th-year option, just like T. Higgins is for $21 million. He wants his extension now. My question to you, Jack, we know the Bengals are a bit of what we would call a mom and pop business. It's a family-owned franchise. They're a little bit parsimonious. They don't hand out the cash as freely as some other teams. Do you think, Jack, that approach to not paying players matters? Do you think they're getting complacent and putting too much on Joe Cool's shoulders?
Oh, well, it's just, could this be a rehashing of the Carson Palmer situation where he was the chosen one? He came in, the owners loved him, and eventually Carson Palmer just went, this is bullshit, I'm leaving. I can't deal with the way that the organization's being run. Go to the Cardinals and did pretty well there with
wherever he ended up.
No, he went to the Cardinals.
He went to both. Yeah.
Went to both, yeah.
I think a lot of wide receivers have seen the Justin Jefferson contract and then gone, well, if Justin Jefferson can get paid, relatively early in his rookie deal, well, maybe so should I. But Justin Jefferson is arguably, he's not arguably, he's the best wide receiver ever at this point in his career. So he deserves big money. Jamar Chase probably feels a little bit hard done by because I'm going to call him the Cincinnati Slim Shady, has been on and off the field for a while. T. Higgins, listen, I don't know if he's really worth what he's asking. You do say that it's falling on Zach Moss, but I have a sneaky suspicion Chase Brown is going to take quite a lot of the load as well. I really liked him coming out, and I think he's got the skill set to be quite an explosive runner. But
Jack, I watched every carry for his entire career for Illinois. I found this video on YouTube, the Big Ten, and it was 23 minutes of every single carry Chase Brown had as college. And I sat there and watched it like a loser. But when he came out and got some reps last year, he did look fairly explosive. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I really like it. But it's the offensive line. And if you're putting it all on the Cincinnati Slim Shady and you're still not really protecting him and you're still going to put him in the gun, you're still going to put him under pressure, you're still going to rely on him to score, geez, I don't know if I'd be super happy if I was Joey Ice. That's where I sit. Andy, what's your read on the defense here? Because I was looking at it, I'm just going, huh? It's just a bunch of guys.
Well, this is, again, Andy, you can answer, but this is the same point, I reckon. Captain Lou Anarumo, for about 2-3 years, he was a hot name because he kept on having a completely different second half game plan to the first and had that memorable win against the Chiefs. Last year, they came back down to earth a bit and they were 21st in points allowed in the NFL. He doesn't like to blitz much, and those guys on the back end, Cam Taylor-Britt and others, Dax Hill from Michigan has been a bit of a bust so far. I was super high on him coming out, so that's a cross for me so far. What do you make of this defense, Andy?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. You talk. Sorry, just this is hot on my mind, talking about money on offense and not wanting to splurge and pay guys like Jamar Chase and stuff. Joe Burrow was the first guy, the plus $50 million a year quarterback. So they're not actually, they're giving him the weapons that they don't want to pay. They're making them pissed off. They're not giving him running backs or, better running backs, more consistent, reliable guys. It's a really weird philosophy on the offense. As far as defense goes, Lou's got some questions to answer because, like you said, Al, the defense was 28th in coverage, 20th in run defense, 27th overall per PFF. They've beefed up the interior of the offensive line. They added Sheldon Rankins from Houston. They drafted who the Chargers wanted big time, Chris Jenkins from Michigan. Bit of secondary help.
Who did they lose, Andy, at the interior defensive line? One of my favorite players, I reckon, one of the most underrated players in the league, and Detroit went and pinched him.
Yeah, well...
DJ
Reader, you're right. It's a big loss. Look, I see some promise in Chris Jenkins, so there's a bit of help in the safety room. Von Bell and Geno Stone are upgrades from Nick Scott. And, they sort of cover the deficits of Dax Hill and Jordan Battle. I would have liked to have seen some cornerback action from Duke Tobin and the like, but... They've got Josh Newton in the 5th round from TCU.
You watched him a bit, I reckon.
Yeah, I did. He doesn't jump off the page. If you're relying on a 5th rounder from TCU, well, you know what happens with draftees from TCU. Max Duggan and Quentin Johnson. So, look, I don't know. I don't think that they've necessarily done enough offensively to improve drastically. And I don't think they've done enough defensively to improve drastically. Like, being the second best tackling team in the league, hey, it just means that a lot of the, you've just got more opportunity to tackle, which isn't a good thing. It means your defense is on the field longer. So much of this season is relying on the offense. Joe Burrow being healthy, maintaining. They went 1-5 in the division last year. Like, that's just...
So does that mean, have they missed this window where Burrow and the Bengals are, in the AFC title game? They've had this 2 or 3 year run. Has that come to an end? Or could you see this team kind of being there again in January and making noise, Jack?
Dare I say it, that little Zachy Taylor's got a bit of a hot seat to start the season. I think if they lose out in the AFC North, I think Zach Taylor is definitely gone. I don't think this team has the capacity to do anything more than maybe finish second if they're lucky. Because actually, I don't see them finishing any. They're 3rd or 4th for me. And wasn't it also true that Trey Hendrickson wanted to leave? Was pretty unhappy as well
or wanted a new deal.
Wanted a new deal, didn't get it. I just think there's too many rumors.
Let's put him. Let's
17
put him in the.
Yeah, he's
let's
very
put him
good.
in the disgruntled category.
Yeah. Joe, I love Joe Burrow. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league when he's up and running. The way that he can manipulate the pocket, the way that he's so cool under pressure. I just don't think he's been surrounded by a supporting cast. So, dare I say, this is a win for me.
Yeah, I'm going win at home. Week 11, plenty of time for the Chargers to gel, to come together. Who knows if Joe's even going to be playing by then? He's been in and out for years, poor guy. So I'm going win.
We'll make it 3 from 3. I'm going win as well. The Chargers get this one, which for me takes them 2-1 in the AFC North. All right, last one. Take a moment, take a pause, listeners. Top your drink up. We're on the home stretch.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
We, of course, cover probably the most important one symbolically from a Chargers perspective, since half our bloody team seems to come from the organisation, the Baltimore Ravens, a team I'm usually obsessed with in terms of how they manage their roster. They've got a great uniform, a cool home stadium, good fans. They're always a fun watch. I thought this year was a little different for them. I mean, they've done their usual thing where I think they've drafted quite well and picked a few guys I really liked, like Nate Wiggins in particular, the cornerback from Clemson. I do like the punt they've taken on Derrick Henry. I think the deep analytics would tell you he still had a pretty good year for Tennessee last year, despite really having to carry all of the load again. With Lamar Jackson, in the pistol or RPOs, that is a very difficult duo to stop. If Lamar keeps the ball, he's going to be able to scamper to the edge, or he just hands it off to Derrick Henry, who plows straight through the middle. They'll be very tough to stop, as per usual. However, I think this is a little different, where they have allowed an alarming number of players to leave. Not only players, but also coaches. I'll start with the players. The offensive lines had more turnover than the Ravens will ever usually permit. Morgan Moses was a very good right tackle. He's out the door. They lose Kevin Zeitler and John Simpson. Huge. And now they're really relying on probably a rookie right tackle in Roger Rosengarten from Washington, whose tape I didn't like that much. He was athletic, but I think he's really going to struggle with power early on in his NFL career. They've let their running backs walk. 2 of them are with the Chargers. Odell Beckham and Devin Duvernay leave. And then a lot of defensive backs too, including Geno Stone, who's gone to the Bengals, who had 7 interceptions last year, the second most in the entire NFL. Then for the coaches...
Patrick Queen gone.
Patrick Queen as well. That's a big one too, Jack. So thanks for mentioning him as well. So mass exodus from players. And... unfortunately, what the Ravens are having to deal with now is their defensive coaches have now become the new Fangio in vogue team. Everyone wants the Mike Macdonald Ravens defense, so they lose Mike Macdonald to Seattle. They lose their defensive back coach, Denard Wilson, to the Titans. He's their DC. They lose their defensive line coach, Anthony Weaver, to the Dolphins. He's their DC. We now know the Chargers are going to employ a Baltimore-style defense. So they have just been left bereft in their coaching ranks, and it's up to their inside linebacker coach from last year, Zachary Orr, steps up to become the defensive coordinator. Now, you could say they had their pick of the bunch, and maybe they let the ones walk who they were happy to, and Zachary Orr's the best of those coaches. But there is a lot of change happening with this team. Andy, I'm going to throw to you with a question here. So for the Ravens, because they're so successful, what typically matters is how they play in the playoffs. Last year, after an NFL MVP season, Lamar did shit the bed against the Chiefs in that massive AFC title game, losing 17-10. Remember, there were those 3 terrible turnovers. Lamar had a strip sack early. Zay Flowers fumbled the ball at the Kansas City 9, reaching for the end zone when they were trailing 17-7. Then trailing 17-7 still with 6 minutes left in the game. We were watching it together, my friend. Lamar Jackson tries to fit the ball into double coverage in the red area. Picked off, game over. Andy, is Lamar ever going to get over this hump?
That's a tough question, because all that's going through my head is that it's becoming a theme. It really is. It's like he plays great up until January, and then just, doesn't know how to seal the deal, right? Man, they were shockingly disappointing in that game against the Chiefs. I do recall watching that with you and just going, "Oh man, this if we couldn't have been rooting for a non-Chargers team harder to knock the Chiefs off." I don't know. They were phenomenal during the regular season, and I don't know. I always come to that point where I think, man, maybe the Ravens are going 9-8, and they're going to fall off, and then Lamar plays MVP style football, and Zay Flowers is the QJ that we didn't get, and all. Well,
I thought that was the year, because the week before in the divisional round, the Texans hot off this great win against the Browns, traveled to Baltimore, and Baltimore killed them, smoked them. Lamar played really well, but then in the next week, AFC title game, Pat Mahomes is just not the same kettle of fish. So I don't know, Jack. What do you think? I know you're a bit of a Lamar doubter rather than a truther.
I didn't even answer your question. I just don't even have a way around it, because If I say, yeah, he's going to do it, he's going to choke again, Jack.
I have always said that, regular season Lamar is really challenging to come up against because you only get a week to game plan. You only get a week to look at film to prepare for the Baltimore game. When it comes to the playoffs and teams have a lot more focus, they've got a lot more resources at their disposal. They've got a lot more time to see what the tendencies are in Lamar's game that season. So the way I look at they've constructed this team, my guess, and this is purely a guess based on my analysis and thoughts, is that they'll come out hot because it's that backfield with Lamar and Derrick Henry, the league hasn't really seen something like that before. And I think they're going to try and cover up the real lack of capability on the offensive line with just this incredible running attack. And you're sort of going, how do we play this? What we're going to do? How are we going to guard this? So I think they're going to come out really hot in the first half of the year. Once teams start to get a little bit of tape of it and start to understand the tendencies, I think we might see a bit of a comeback to earth. They might start, getting pressure up the middle a little bit more, reading where Lamar's going to scramble to, reading where Derrick Henry's going to run. And is Derrick Henry capable of, wearing, 300-400 carries? I'm not too sure. The defense, I think, will always be good. They play very well at home. But yeah, this feels to me like a team that'll come out super hot.
We got him at SoFi, baby. This is at our
come
home.
out super hot.
This is in Jim's RV, baby.
But by the back end and hopefully by the time we play them, the tendencies will be pretty clear and the deficiencies are going to be glaring.
I'm concerned about the, for use of a better word, the youth in the Ravens defense. We're looking at essentially 2 rookie cornerbacks. And look, Nate Wiggins is great, but there's always teething issues coming into the NFL. TJ Tampa as well was sort of like, I could see him being okay, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be the defense. I don't think it's going to be the best defense in the league like it was last year. I don't know. I think there's ways around it. I think there's going to be heat on Roger Rosengarten from Mack and Bosa. There's insider trading going on with the Chargers staff now knowing what the Ravens do. Greg Roman going, hey, this guy's got a dicky leg. Get him there. Like, I think we're going to be well planned and organized to be able to go after this team. If we're just talking the Chargers game alone, it's definitely not the fearful coming up against the Ravens that we're used to as Chargers fans.
Well, on that, unless, Jack, you've got anything else to say, might go straight into the game prediction. So, as you said, Andy, it is week 12, Chargers playing the Ravens at home. It will be a primetime game on Monday Night Football. The brothers facing off as coaches.
The Hardball!
I hate to be a negative Nelly, but my next morning headline is John wins Harbaugh battle again 12 years later. I'm putting this down as a loss. So the Chargers will go 2-2 in the AFC North, according to moi. Jack, what do you reckon, mate?
I pencil this in as a loss as well. And I have the Chargers going 1-3 in the AFC North because they're going to lose to Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh, with the only win coming against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay.
All right. Well, I didn't think I'd say this looking at the schedule from the outset that the one loss that we'd have against the AFC North would be against the Steelers, but Jim gets his. 12 years later. Chargers get it done at SoFi. Monday Night Football. Going 3-1.
By the way,
AFC
Thea's going to be very angry with us about these predictions. Thea, I can hear you being very pissed off.
You see, Thea, I'm not wearing the Rivers because you criticised me. Unfortunately, listen, if you're willing to send me a jersey, I'd be happy. Money's a bit tight at the moment.
Double XL.
Try quadruple XL.
Double.
Sorry, I've made a habit of just dropping M&M lines tonight, so double XL just popped into mind. I'm going win, baby. And 3-1 in the AFC North. So get on board the positivity. Right
Train.
on. Whatever you want.
Choo-choo.
Or we're in glide mode, and it's actually the plane listening to Coach Harbaugh.
Well, what have we got? We've got the Bengals into the... Oh, man, we got 3 of these opponents within a month of one another. And I think we're just going to hit it hot. We're going to, as far as I see it, we're going to knock all 3 of them off. We're going to gel. It's going to be awesome. We'll be watching it on a Tuesday lunchtime, Tuesday night probably after work. So I can't wait to see it. It's going to be an awesome game. And I'm hoping that Derrick Henry is just stopped. And it's going to be our guy, the Big Pooh.
Big Pooh.
Big Pooh. All the spoils to him. So there you have it. We're a bit different in our predictions for this division, guys. I like that. I feel a lot better about that. Maybe that's why I'm still upbeat an hour and 15 minutes into it. But heck of a breakdown, boys. Love to hear what you guys think, what your predictions are on the AFC North bouts. But yeah. Tune in next week, and we're going to get stuck into the rest. So the Pats, the Titans, and the Cardinals before we then hopefully get a friend of the show to join us for the AFC West in a week and a bit's time. Until then, guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Thunder Down Under. Hooroo!
Bye.
Ta-ta.
Back pedals looking, firing. He's got Floyd turning. Got it. Zigzag. 10, 5, high step. Touchdown.